Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing visa extension and how easy it is compared to other countries here in Southeast Asia. And I got to thinking of this when reading a recent article from the Pattaya Mail, that's pattayamail.com. Articles titled, Thailand's Tourist Entry Rules Aren't Worse Than Her Regional Rivals. And I thought this was interesting. We've done a number of videos recently about sort of comparing Malaysia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, various other jurisdictions, Philippines briefly as well, various other jurisdictions in the region and the hoops you got to jump through, the costs associated with it. Let's be clear, this is all still pretty vague. There's a lot of fog out there with respect to the information. As evidenced, we just did a video comparing Vietnam, or giving an update comparing Vietnam and Thailand immigration. And at first blush, we did a video that Vietnam looked relatively straightforward to go into. And then now we've talked to people, obviously this is anecdotally, that have said, hey, no, it's not the easiest thing in the world. You know, Vietnam has kind of their own version of Thailand Pass, etc. But there's been sort of a, I don't know, there seems to be some ambivalence out there as to whether or not Thailand is really all that much worse than any other place around the region. And I would say it's probably shades of gray, with the one major glaring exception being Cambodia. Cambodia seems to have really just thrown open the gates here recently and are just allowing basically as unfettered an entry as I've heard of any place in Asia in the last 2 years. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. But I got to thinking about this issue with respect to extension after reading this article, and I urge those who are watching this video, go read this article yourself. A lot of information in there. But this little excerpt I thought was interesting. Quoting directly, all neighboring countries warn arrivals that extension of a tourist visa is not automatic, with several stressing there is no quote-unquote right to stay once the permission has run out. Extending a visa in Thailand is far and away the easiest procedure in the whole of Southeast Asia. It's an interesting notion. I don't know that I know that for sure, insofar as, you know, I talked to people in Cambodia. You know, again, it's my understanding extension of status in Cambodia relatively straightforward, but it has its own hiccups and problems, most notably very untransparent, very hard to figure out, even get guidelines sometimes for a local immigration office as to what's going to be required to get things done. Now, regionally, some other countries, we've discussed this in more detail, the notion of extension. Again, I think it's shades of gray compared to Thailand. I think Thailand, though, one major issue is Thailand has always been such a quote-unquote, you know, I don't know how you want to call it, destination, haven, you know, very popular amongst expats, long-term stayers here in Thailand. And for that reason, the immigration system is not only relatively sophisticated, but it's relatively transparent compared to its counterparts in the region. So, in one sense, I would say, yes, extending visa status here in Southeast Asia is probably easier in Thailand than many other places in Southeast Asia, if not all places in Southeast Asia, although there probably are some exceptions. Singapore, most notably, is pretty transparent in how they do things. But the long story short is, you know, does it really matter? If you're coming to Thailand, you're coming to Thailand. You're not coming to Thailand to forum shop for visa extensions. It may be easier in Thailand on any given day. And then on top of that, every case is different. You know, some cases move through the system, you know, at breakneck speed, you know, like grass through a goose, if you will. And other folks' cases get caught up. Sometimes it's just the way it is. So I don't know. The thing to take away from this video, though, is, yeah, I could be convinced of the argument that Thailand has the easiest visa extension process in Southeast Asia, but I won't say that it's the easiest by far. I suspect other countries are to some degree similar to Thailand, but yeah, all things considered, if you kind of look at it in the totality of the circumstances, probably easier and more straightforward to extend your visa status here in Thailand than any place else in Southeast Asia.